Yeah, welcome back. We've all been in tears this morning.
Oh, my goodness. I bought the new Christian Robinson book called Dad when I was in Waterstones yesterday, and I've just sat at the table and read it all out. We all had tears running down our faces.
It needs a warning on the front, like, you will cry.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful because it shows every aspect of being a dad, good and bad, even the angry bits and the sad bits and the tears and the happy bits. It is such a beautiful book.
It's a very 360 human dad view, isn't it?
Yeah,
gorgeous.
totally. And, you know, and in interviews, knowing that he said he was brought up without a father, when you know that and read the book as well, it's so much more bittersweet and tender.
Yeah.
But it's lovely.
It's beautiful.
Even thinking about it, I'm like, oh.
We're big fans already, so to see that, and
I need
lovely
to buy
book.
a copy now.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Okay, we got a question. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay, so it is from Shana Rama. That's her name on Instagram. And she explains that she has aphantasia and that she listened to our Elephantasia podcast, as we called it. And she also has dyslexia. And so she left me a voice message, which I've transcribed here. So she says, in England specifically, because that's the only place that I learned art, everything is drawn from real form. So I think she means like drawn from life. So that's how we're storing the information. What I'm curious about is this. I admire lots of artists, particularly from Russia, like Victoria Semikina and another, Eleanor Ellis, who I hadn't heard of before, but I did a search and her work is lovely. She says, they are so brilliant at doing misshapen bodies with exaggerated features and arms and small heads. How are they taught art for them to be able to draw those figures? They are really emotive to us, really emotive to me. I would love to be able to draw in a more exaggerated way, but how do you learn that? How do you break away from the more exact shapes of human beings? And how is that accepted? Because so often I or somebody else will show designers, art directors their work and they'll say, oh no, that child looks a bit too old for their age group and that looks really young. But yet, you know, when you have these kind of figures that are really amazing and they're accepted. Yeah, so I suppose she's saying sometimes you're art directed out of doing those exaggerated shapes. And she's saying that sometimes publishers make comments like, all of your characters have got to have circles for eyes and dots for eyes. And when she sees Victoria's work, the characters have all got different eyes and nobody's correcting her about that. Yeah, so, yeah, and I think this question's really interesting, isn't it? Because there's the education part of it and then there's the publishing part of it. And then there's your own voice and holding on to your own voice. And how do you do that?
And confidence to just do your work as you do it and not be... I suppose it's harder maybe if you're starting out, isn't it? Because you haven't got a proven track record, and publishers, they just want a safe bet, really, don't they? Well, they don't just want a safe bet, they want to know what they're getting. And maybe because Victoria has such an incredible career and she's got the fine art background and everything,
I think that might be the key with Victoria, because I didn't know a lot about her before. We went to see that exhibition in Bologna, didn't we? And it was fantastic. But by then my brain was scrambled from all of the gorgeousness in Bologna and I didn't do any reading. I just admit I looked at the pictures. And when we got this question, I thought, I'll do a bit more research into her gorgeous work. And I found this brilliant Substack that's called For Artists. And there's an interview with Victoria on there. And she says that she studied fine art in Russia and then she studied printmaking in Italy and then accidentally became an illustrator when she posted some drawings from life on Instagram. And I've forgotten the magazine, but quite a prestigious magazine saw it and asked her to do a few pieces. So she accidentally became an illustrator. And she says that she really loves jazz parties and jazz dancing. And you can really see that in her work, can't you? It doesn't look like she's looking at other illustrators for inspiration. She's come from printmaking and fine art and she loves jazz and jazz dancing. and she likes to draw from life at jazz parties. She likes to draw the band and the musicians. You can really see that in her work, can't you? So she's not been, that phrase you used about illustrators looking at other illustrators, like
it's almost
eating
like,
itself.
Yeah, like if you're just looking within your own thing, it's almost like inbreeding, like just you're not getting fresh influences into you.
Also it means that, we've talked about this before, the subject matter, the content, what she loves it so much that she wants her drawings to convey her love of jazz and the bit of jazz dancing she likes, because you can see in the crazy gestures of the figures that she shows, particularly in this travelling exhibition that was in Bologna when we were there. A lot of that was to do with 1930s films like Charlie Chaplin, lots of body language, and Metropolis, which had lots of really kind of iconic shapes of figures and hairdos in it. And she takes so much pleasure in all of those things that the content is what drives her urge to exaggerate the figures, to convey what she loves about dance and things like that. And I think if you're starting with something you love as your source material, it pushes your drawing ability, because having been to a Russian school, she will have been completely schooled in technical ability. Yeah. So, they have very traditional fine art drawing. So she will have mastered that craft, which is kind of like a lot of people say, if I've been drawing from life for so long, how do I make that leap? But she's made the leap because she's got something to say, and she's trying really hard to say it.
I think it's interesting when you see her sketchbooks as well, because when she's drawing from life, it's in her sketchbooks. So she obviously, when you interpret something that you draw from life, the way it appears in your sketchbook has a lot of you in it. You don't literally draw what you see from life. It's filtered through your eyes. And her sketchbooks they've already got that design aesthetic in there. So I think drawing from life is really useful to see whether you have that, like what you lean towards naturally, and then be aware of that and exaggerate that. So I would say with the person who's written in this message to really lean into it, really go for it. And maybe publishers are advising you out of it, maybe because they see hesitancy and they don't know that this is your strong visual language. I don't know. You have to be careful who you take advice from as well, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think when you see art directors who may seem as though they're behaving like art tutors by telling you that's not the way to draw something, they're saying our publishing house prefers it to look this way. And if in that case, you kind of don't want to be with those people. They're maybe not the right publisher for you. It's a bit like dating. If you're being advised to do something that isn't natural to you, then they're not going to be great bedfellows in terms of the visual aesthetic.
Yeah, you want somebody who loves you because they love your work. They love you as you are.
Yeah, exactly.
So just be yourself even harder, please.
Yeah. I think if you really lean into it and you're really sure that's who you are, it would be very difficult for somebody to ask you not to be that.
Yeah.
I imagine the more you lean into being yourself, the less likely it is for an art director to try and talk you out of it.
And half the battle of illustration is just carrying on, isn't it? And if you're doing something that just comes naturally and you feel so strongly about doing anyway, then it's going to be way easier to have that longevity if you're doing what you love.
I think because she's a fine artist as well, she's always been told you provide the content. If you're the artist, then you know what you're working about, a bit like a picture book illustrator in many ways. If you're an illustrator and an author, you're driving the content, and the content will be attuned to what you like drawing, and you like drawing what you're into in life. So it kind of syncs together. Whereas I think if you're an illustrator, like, I'm a pen for hire, have you got a story for me? What would you like me to draw? It leaves you susceptible to being swayed by what people want in terms of style. Yeah, I can't think how else to describe it. But, she draws what she loves, and there's this fervour to get it over to people.
I'm thinking about in my experience, watching my daughter go through school, I feel like there's, at least in British education, there's a problem with this right from really early in education, because we've watched her, it's really frustrating to watch actually. To pass her exam, her work needed to be a certain thing, and it was mostly realism, and I have nothing against realism, but it seemed like this is the way that you pass your exam. You do realism and you do it well. And then when it came time to apply to art school, we looked at her work, and it's brilliant, it's very skilled, but the stuff she'd done at school wasn't really her personality. She'd done all this other work at home that's incredible, really brilliant work at home. And so we were saying to her, you need to put that in your folio. But her school were telling her, no, you can't put that in your folio. That's not good. And she'd done all these drawings from life at the zoo, and the animals moved quickly, and she'd captured the energy of the animals, and she'd been drawing from films, sitting in front of the TV and drawing while TV was on, not pressing pause, just drawing and drawing. These drawings were fantastic.
We saw them, and she's not just being delusional proud mum. They were amazing.
I am delusional proud mum, but I think she genuinely is good as well. Where was I going? Oh, yes, so school were advising her that stuff wasn't good enough to put in her folio, but we could see that was where she is in her work. That's where her personality is, and the drawing is genuinely brilliant. So she had to work really hard to ignore school. She had to stop going into school at certain art lessons where they were getting the folio ready. We were advising her to do that and calling in sick for her. I wanted to speak.
Arrested,
I wanted to speak to the art teacher, but she didn't want me to. And so she managed to make this folio herself, putting in the work that she really liked, and carefully not showing it to the teacher until it was too late, and got into all of the art schools of her choice. She did brilliantly. Unconditional offers, and she's got into Glasgow School of Art. Obviously, I am showing off about her.
Too right.
It's just brilliant, really brilliant. She's done so well. But then she's got all these unconditional offers everywhere that she wanted to go, and now she has to get through her final exam at school. And they're now telling her to take that all back out of her folio, because that is not what the exam board want. And they need all of the work in the folio to link together in a very literal fashion. And it's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. And we've been advising her to ignore it and not go into school. Luckily, she's pretty stubborn and she knows which work she likes, and she's fought her case.
She's because of growing up with two artists, she's gotten a really advanced understanding of what she wants to do and what her work would be about. I guess the A-level syllabus, which is quite limiting, is spoon-feeding, observational drawing, still lives, development of
I have to say
idea.
they've barely done any observational drawing.
Really?
They do a lot of it. This is in the Scottish system. I'm speaking to other people. I think the English system is the same. She's barely done any drawing from life. In fact, I'm trying to remember if they had... No, a lot of taking a photo on their iPad and drawing from the iPad. Yeah, and realism. Yeah.
Oh my God, no. Having interviewed for Glasgow 30 years ago and interviewed for Chinese schools and plenty of places, I know that what I saw in your daughter's folder would have blown anyone away. You would get into college. That's what they're looking for. They don't expect it because they know they're looking at A-level syllabuses most of the time, or work that's come out of that. But if they see something that's kind of personally driven, you definitely get in. And it was the right thing to do. But I don't know why it's a sausage factory form of prescriptive drawing in art. If it's not observational, if it's drawing from photos, that's just criminal. Work creatively.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the students that don't have artist parents.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say, the same thing.
Yeah.
Imagine when you're at school and you're a good child, you want to please your teachers, you do what you're told, you follow the rules, you tick all the boxes, you get an A and you go, yay, and then you apply to art school and they go, no way.
We know a student that happened to, and she's really talented. Her work is incredible, but was advised that all of the work should be the realism, all of it. And she applied to a prestigious art school who I am convinced she's talented enough to get in, but her folio probably just looked like everybody else who applied, who didn't have artistic parents or friends like you two, because Frieda came and had a chat with you, didn't she, and Evie, about Evie's experience.
What art colleges are looking
that
for.
Was
and what
so helpful. Yeah, I really feel for kids who don't have that outside advice.
And I also, this isn't meant to be a condemnation of school art teachers either, because they're our sistren and brethren, really.
Yeah,
they went through college.
Job, aren't they?
Yeah, they're doing a job they've been told to do. The examination boards have decided that their interpretation of creativity and the ability to draw technically must be demonstrated through these exercises. And those exercises are reductive. They don't show anything about the child or about their potential creativity. And it's art schools have to look at that work and think, okay, I understand what this kid has been asked to do, but can we within there see a few shreds of personality or individuality and character and drive? Whereas Frieda was lucky enough to be able to leapfrog all of that, and with her strength of kind of her stubbornness, refused to do it and negotiate it carefully enough to get the two things she wanted. But
I was speaking to teachers, they feel really frustrated that they're stuck in the system. It's not individual teachers' fault. It's just a bonkers system.
They must be so cheesed off being forced to teach something that they know isn't genuine creativity, because that's what the examining boards have requested as part of the syllabus. Or we'll get a few letters about this, won't we?
I suppose in reference to Shana Rama's question as well, it's kind of the same as a grown-up as well. Like, you think you're doing all the right things. You're like, I'm going to do what the publisher tells me. I'm going to do what this person tells me. When really, when you just do what you want to do and fly your freak flag, I'll bring it back to that as well. Like Victoria's work, she's just doing what she wants to do, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Yeah, she's literally one of the most popular illustrators at the moment. You can see why, because it's just so full of character and excitement. And, you know, that the other thing I like about it, you were talking about the sketches, was the gap between her sketchbook work and the final work is really slim. You know, she just brings a bit of colour to it, but everything is kept with the same original excitement from the sketches. So there's not that huge bridge between, here's my sketches, and then I bored myself silly by painting this in a very refined and overly rendered way to call it final artwork. So she's also a great example of...
It's like, Joe, we did the one-to-one reviews, and somebody's work, they had like gorgeous collage and it was all edgy and exciting, and then they did picture book illustration, and it looked like they thought, now I am going to do children's illustration. And you could see, and I think that's Victoria's work, you can see she's not gone, now I will do illustration. It's just happened like by accident almost.
Yeah, the work is the work. Even if it's sketches, it's only a small step into the final artwork. You know, some of it is just a matter of just enlarging it. I mean, her big painting was, she had so much great work in that show. If it travels near you, try and see it. I can't remember the title of it, but maybe we'll get that in the show notes. Yeah. But you remember sometimes as well, Helen, you would say, if you're trying to get that feeling in a bodily gesture in a drawing, and in fact I was doing it yesterday, you have to stand in the pose and you have to feel it in your head. You start feeling it, and then you end up standing up doing it, maybe trying to photograph yourself. I need someone...
I was pulling funny faces sometimes when I'm drawing, or trying to draw sad.
It really helps, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It really helps if you feel sad and pull a sad face while you're trying to draw it. It sort of comes out through your brain, down your arm and into the drawing somehow.
Because you have to exaggerate the body language as well to transpose the meaning, because often character-based illustration can only do so much without extra visual props to indicate this person is feeling this, or this person is doing that, or there's another person and this is their interaction. If you've only got one kind of figure to express it through, you have to use absolutely everything you've got. So I was standing up pretending to be a Tudor barmaid who was really bad at maths and had been underpaid and ripped off by garrison soldiers. I was like,
how did you act that
out? Can that be the image for this podcast?
I'll show you my sketches.
I don't want your sketches, I want you.
Okay, it's like a Tudor Bet Lynch who failed O-level maths and still can't add up and has been ripped off. So, yeah, I think standing up and doing gestures is the only way to get that conveyed.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps.
It'd be good if you have a Russian background in drawing figures as well. Technical backgrounds in drawing does no harm at all, as long as you can make that big leap into transforming those drawings and that knowledge into something else.
I think it's really interesting that she studied fine art and that she's ended up doing illustration. This is what I've been saying to Frieda about going to art school. It doesn't really matter what you study there, just the experience of being at art school, full stop. When you come out the other end, you're still a baby and you could be anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many people who come to illustration from the graphic design end where they were probably drawing, but it was still a lot more typographically or photographically focused. And other people who come from fine art where they were drawing all the time. So many people meet in the middle. in illustration, which is why Bologna's so exciting, because there were loads of those people there.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay, lovely.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.